Inviting Shift podcast focuses on how we can step through this messy journey of life confidently so we can feel good about how we show up, have more connected relationships, and connect to our purpose and meaning, or, in short, how we manifest the lives we crave in practical, tangible ways. Hi, I'm your host, Christina Smith, and on this episode, we're going to cover the one huge block that we have when employing the skill of confidence. I want to start with a story today that I don't tell a lot of people, and it was probably one of the most life-changing experiences. So here goes my vulnerability in order to make some important points about how we can be more confident. When I was 21 and tired of college and bartending, I took a chance on a crazy idea: selling perfume and cologne in order to start my own business. Now, if you know this, give me a break. I was young. Now, if you were around in the 90s, there were all kinds of weirdly structured companies like this, where you apprenticed for a commission only in hopes that you would promote yourself through the structure and one day own your own franchise type. Not the important part. The important part was that I had to sell cologne and perfume on the street and by cold calling businesses in person. It wasn't designer stuff either, right? It was the knockoffs of the designers for a more affordable price. Let me also inject that I am an introvert at heart. I can put the smile on and make conversation with anyone as a bartender, but for the most part, I was an introvert. I did not go up to strangers and start a conversation with them. So going up to these people I did not know or selling inside someone else's business wasn't exactly my cup of tea. I had a lot of fear. What if they ignore me? What if they think I'm slinging drugs? And believe me, there were times where cops were called and our stashes of perfumes were rifled through because people thought we must be doing something illegal. What if they insulted the product? What if I am bothering them? What if they just think I'm a pain in the butt? What ifs never ended. And surely when I focused on the what ifs and the fear, I showed up fearful and easy to dismiss. But then I learned more about sales. It's a statistic. The idea isn't to get everyone to buy. It was to eliminate as quickly the ones that wouldn't and move on. There can't be fear of being told no because I wasn't going to hear it. Then I was told a stat. If I could get 10 people to try a spritz of perfume or cologne, I would sell at least one, even when I was fearful. So if I talked to 100 people and more than half would say yes to a free spray, which meant I was minimally selling 5 bottles. Of course, as I got better, so did my stats. The feared no became a beacon for me. No problem. Let me get on to my next spray. I started focusing on the joy of making the sale and finding sales rather than giving all my focus to the fear. Fear even helped me in my sales. When you're on the street, bad things can happen, so I only focused on those things that were truly about safety. I got over the fear by walking with it and repeating. While it wasn't wildly successful, of course, meaning I don't sell cologne and perfume today, I did learn a ton about fear, judgment, and how we can allow that to change how we see ourselves and what we're capable of. Either by backing down or stepping away from the uncomfortable or leaning into it with the skill of confidence and lessening the fear over time. That time was the time I proved to myself that the opinion of me that mattered most was mine. It showed me that I can step through fear and do the thing anyway. It taught me that my success didn't depend on who thought what about me or even getting rid of my fear. It depended on where I put my focus and how I was willing to step into the uncomfortable. While you may not have had a fear experience just like that, there are so many things that we do even though we have fear. We have babies, that's not scary, I don't know what is. Going to that interview, having that vulnerable and challenging conversation with people we love, speaking our truth. These things all take courage in order to employ the skill of confidence. The definition of courage: the quality of mind or spirit that enables a person to face difficulty, danger, pain, etc. without fear or bravery. But I think that definition is a bit off. I mean, without fear, why would we need courage if there was no fear? I think Brené Brown's definition is better here. Courage is fear walking. It's when we move forward, whether we know what lies beyond the next few steps or if we'll even get a favorable outcome. Kind of like confidence, right? They are both skills. We aren't necessarily born with a natural talent for either of these, courage or confidence. In fact, I would even say we have a natural tendency for the opposite because humans love their comfort. We are creatures of comfort, right? I mean, I know I am. I love comfort. That's why even though there may be a fire inside to do those big goals or dreams, we choose against them in our everyday choices. We don't employ confidence or courage because it's scary stuff. Growth is uncomfortable, and growth often requires confidence and courage. So confidence and courage are meant to be uncomfortable for us. Otherwise, we wouldn't be growing and we get stuck like the rose that refuses to bloom. For confidence and courage, we have to get to know our fear. We have several ways we naturally deal with fear as humans. And, because I love the words, let's add another definition in here. So definition of fear, a distressing emotion aroused by impending danger, evil, pain, etc. Whether the threat is real or imagined, the feeling or condition of being afraid. What fear is psychologically is a natural response to our thoughts. The more fearful our thoughts, the more fear we feel. The thinking comes first. So the three ways that we actually deal with fear by default. We ignore it. We love just to avoid fear. I mean, I've done this too. And just so you know, I've done all three of these. We like to pretend it's not there, call ourselves fearless as if there is such a thing in humanness. In my life, when I do this, I tend to miss the actual safety issues too. Or the fear comes back louder than before and knocks me down. Either way, ignoring it isn't effective. The second way that we try to manage fear is to control it. We love to control a thing, right? If you're a perfectionist, that's all about control, and we're going to talk about that in an upcoming episode. If I can just think of all of the things that might go wrong, I can definitely avoid any kind of discomfort, right? However, all this does is have me show up controlling and freaked out every time a detail falls out of line with what I want it to be. And we really can't control everything, can we? The third way that we try to deal with fear is to settle for it. It's too scary, so it must mean it just is what it is. I have to stay stuck because fear tells me not to move. I stay in my box. It's not acceptance. Acceptance is different. Acceptance is I have to accept what is right now before I can choose to transform it. Settling it is a decision to stay with it, and that's just the way it is. But what if we got to know our fear so we could manage ourselves through it? When we get to know our fear, we can pick out the truth in things. We can relax into more trust in ourselves, and we build our confidence. And it's not optional. Fear is a natural human emotion and actually a huge benefit for us, right? Let's think about why we have fear. It keeps us safe. We are here today because our ancestors had great sense of fear that kept them alive long enough to create new generations. Fear is an indicator that safety is at risk. It keeps us from death, getting seriously injured, or all kinds of ways that we could hurt ourselves. It keeps us alive. But most of us don't run into serious dangers every day. We run into discomfort. Our brain gets confused because in our thoughts, we make out whatever discomfort into being life-ending, and yet most aren't. Outside of some real risk takers and risky jobs, most of our everyday fears revolve around things that are not life-threatening. We're afraid of having that hard conversation because someone might judge us harshly or not like us. We're afraid because we don't know what will happen and we could fail and feel humiliation. We're afraid because we try to think of every scenario and know that we can't control every detail. We're afraid because we had a bad experience in the past, which obviously we survived. We're afraid mostly because we don't want to be uncomfortable, and uncomfortable means we are not happy, our chosen emotion. And while there are valid things to be fearful over, most of the things that we worry about are uncomfortable, not truly life or death situations. Here's the thing, life is meant to be uncomfortable. Let me say that again, life is meant to be uncomfortable. One of my top 3 favorite quotes is from Dr. Susan David's book, Emotional Agility. Discomfort is the price of admission to a meaningful life. One of my favorites. And we crave meaning, don't we? We crave deeply connected relationships. We crave growth and learning new things. We crave the challenging, which means we crave discomfort. And the thought of discomfort will naturally bring us fear, unless we get to know our fear and how to distinguish between safety and discomfort. We know discomfort, though, don't we? We feel it. It usually comes in the form of uncomfortable feelings, shame, guilt, anger, grief, sadness, jealousy, fear. The reason these feelings are so uncomfortable is because we've never truly been taught how to manage them. Many of us are completely okay with the feeling of happy, joy, pride, but maybe we weren't allowed to be angry or sad or disappointed, so we don't know how to deal with them. In many cases, we were even taught those uncomfortable feelings were wrong, or if you were raised in some religions, a sin. The truth is, all feelings are valid. We wouldn't have the capability of this huge range of emotions if we weren't meant to feel them all. It's what we do with them that gets us into trouble. If we tell ourselves we aren't allowed to be angry, which is a popular thing I hear, by the way, then we can start shaming ourselves for feeling angry. We can make our essential humanness invalid or wrong. Invalidating our humanness looks like, I should just be grateful. I can't feel this way. What's wrong with me for feeling this way? How this relates to fear is that if we can start seeing our emotions as indicators rather than directives or something to get rid of quickly, we can get the message without the fear stopping us from doing the thing we know we need or want. Normalizing the discomfort. So we're going to do a little visualization. We're going to do just a mini visualization to listen to the message of fear rather than the fear. So if you're in a safe place to do so, close your eyes, or you can gaze a few feet in front of you if that's more comfortable. And just think of one fear. It could be a big dream or goal, or maybe a hard conversation you might need to have. Just zoom in on one particular fear. If it's a big mess of fears, just choose one. Like if I want to write and publish a book, there may be a million steps I fear, but let's start with one single medium-sized one. Like, I fear no one will be interested in my writing, or I fear getting started and not finishing. And take a moment and tap into that one fear behind something you want. And breathe in this story. Notice the thoughts that start happening. Tap into the fear and the spiral of what it means if that thing happens. If the worst case scenario happens. And it may feel like a spiral, or cyclical. One negative message to another. Now notice the fear in your body. Fear is merely an emotion, and emotions show up as physical sensations in the body. Your chest may feel tight. You might feel a little nausea or a headache starting. It can feel different for everyone. Notice what fear feels like in your body, knowing that you are safe in this moment and we're just tapping in. Through this feeling or sensations in your body, does the feeling feel familiar? Can you think of other times in the past that you felt this way? Okay, deep breath. And one more. And you can open your eyes. Fear can grip us, right? It's familiar. We probably can all think of times that felt familiar. Yet we are feeling fear about things that are yet to happen. In this moment, we aren't in any danger. Yet we can feel it as though the worst case scenario is happening right now. And we all know we've spent a ton of time in worry or fear over things that never even came close to coming to fruition. What a waste of energy we could have put into what we actually wanted instead of what we don't. In fact, I think we often manifest the worst case because we're so focused on it. The second step to walking with fear or courage is to tell the whole truth and lead with intention. So we listen to the message, and now we're going to tell ourselves the whole truth and lead with intention. So we're going to do another short visualization about what is the best case scenario. Again, if it's safe to do so, close your eyes and think off to that same future or situation you were thinking about, and remind yourself just briefly what the fear is. What could go wrong or not turn out the way that you want it? What happens if you fail? Now ask yourself, what if the opposite is true? What is the most positive result or intended result in this situation or goal? What would it look like for it to turn out even better than the best case scenario? I want you to picture it. Even better, like magic. Now, how does it feel for the best of the best to come true? Breathe that into your body. What physical sensations come up? Is there tingling, lightness, freedom, pride, fulfillment? Notice if there's even a little fear. And give the sensations some feeling words. If you struggle, think of a time when you felt of those sensations before. What did that feel like? Three to five feelings that would come up with the best of the best scenarios. If you have those 3 to 5 words, breathe them in, or however many you might have. Breathe it into your body, repeating those words in your mind. And open your eyes. Now you have intention. Intention is what we focus on in order to hold ourselves for what we want. We have to put in what we want out. That means if your words are free, lightness, and brave, then you need to put the free, lightness, and brave into your actions. If we want to feel meaningful, impactful, and curious, then we have to lead our actions with meaning, impact, and curiosity. If we want to feel love, compassion, and kindness, we have to approach it with love, compassion, and kindness. It's really that simple. But let's look at an example from one of my clients. I have a client, let's call her Susie. Susie has been struggling with her relationship for years, but she's afraid to have the hard conversations. In almost every area of her life, she avoids having these conversations, even when she's left feeling hurt or diminished by something her husband says. She's sure he probably doesn't mean what he's saying, but he says things and she just sucks it up. When she has brought it up, she's been overwhelmed with fear, afraid he won't listen, afraid he doesn't care and will continue it, but mostly afraid he's going to see her as needy, bitchy, or overly sensitive. She fears the judgment she may receive if she speaks her truth. So we worked on it. We looked at her fear. It seems in the past when she's spoken her truth, it's only come out when she's truly over her limit with anger and even a bit of rage. So instead of having the conversation, she starts with fury and yells to be heard. In response, her husband starts to feel defensive and pushes anger and frustration right back. So she fears bringing up stuff because she doesn't know how to approach it without fear. She was focused on how she could get it wrong. She was focused on the fear, and the outcome would just end in another argument. Instead, I had her imagine, just like we just did, what the best outcome could be to a hard conversation. The best of the best, right? I asked her, what would that feel like? She said, connection, compassion, and being heard. That's what she really, truly wanted from the conversation. So we focused on ways that she could get more of that by putting in more of that into her intentions. So if her intentions are connection, compassion, and being heard, then she probably needs to approach this situation a little bit differently than fury and rage. She thought about it and she focused on it. She meditated with those feelings before having the conversation with her spouse. She chose her words with connection, compassion, and being heard, being the focus, and she delivered it with those in mind. She even shared those as her intentions at the beginning of the conversation to keep herself accountable. She told him that if he felt she was speaking without connection, compassion, and being heard as the focus, he could point it out so they could both stay on track. It was the first of many conversations that went well. She focused on what she really wanted. She brought it with her instead of the fear and the focus on the worst of the worst. She shifted her focus and her energy, and you can too. We'll talk about it more right after this message. This podcast has been sponsored by Christina Smith Coaching. If you have been listening and you're wondering what areas do you have confidence in, then I want you to be able to figure out what are your superpowers when it comes to archetypal energies. So you can go right now to a link around here somewhere or christina-smith.com/superpower quiz and find out what are your superpowers and how you can balance them. So you'll have a whole little guide of how to get more confidence in more areas of your life. So go to the superpower quiz now. Listen, fear comes with really good things too. Ignoring our fear is also banning the great things we really want. If you've ever felt excited, and I know that we all have, excitement is something a lot of us say we crave, but by the very definition, excitement means an emotional state characterized by its potential for impulsive or poorly controlled activity. Fear is always going to come with excitement because it's impulsive, poorly controlled, and yet so many of us squash our excitement because it's scary. Excitement can also mean curiosity and newness, that we want those too. Fear is going to happen. We suffer whether we hide in comfort or we pursue the things that we truly want. I'd rather fail striving for better. Better to shoot for the stars and land on a mountain than stay stuck, right? I have another client. Let's call her Josie. Josie went to school, got her master's degree for the perfect job that she really wanted. She wanted to step into these big roles. But suddenly, when it came to actually applying for those jobs and interviewing for those jobs, she just did not feel qualified, even though she was probably twice as qualified as everyone else applying for those same positions. The thing is, even the things that are exciting can be scary, right? So now that we're listening and not reacting, but listening to the messages of fear and walking with it rather than giving it the spotlight, how do we develop more courage and confidence? Let's talk about this. So we're going to review our steps. So far, we're going to feel the fear and listen for the messages. We listened for the messages of the fear. We're going to find the truth. Is this truly unsafe or is this uncomfortable? Number 3, we're going to lead with intention. How do we want to feel at the end so that we can put that into our intentions now? And then 4, we're going to walk with the fear compassionately. Being kind to ourselves when we fail, it's one of the hardest yet most resilience building tool we can give ourselves. We're probably not going to get it perfect the first time. We normally don't. When we normalize that things can happen, we can give ourselves more compassion. Sometimes people are going to show up as jerks even when they don't intend to. People are going to miss deadlines that make our lives harder. Acts of God are going to happen when we have the most perfect thing planned. Stuff we never could have thought of or prepared for is going to happen. We can't base our confidence on how things look when we get there, but we can ensure we still feel good about our part if we remember that we are only responsible for how we show up, not for the goal looking exactly how we wanted it to. There are external factors that we are not responsible for and can't change. We can do our best to circumvent them, but to judge ourselves on the outcome is what keeps the fear loop going. We fear things because the last time wasn't perfect. It was scary, and then when we got there, it didn't look the way that we wanted. We put all that effort and time in, and it didn't seem to make much of a difference to the goal, right? But it probably did make a difference to our ability to be resilient and try again, if we focus on what we can control ourselves. We talk more about manifesting confidence in episode 1 to be able to see exactly how we step into confidence, but the short of it is we get intentional. Then we start moving forward with compassion, and compassion means putting down perfection. We put down expecting ourselves to get it right every time, especially when we're learning. Compassion is seeing confidence as a skill that doesn't require us to get it right, just that we tried. Then it's celebration or compassion, and often both. Celebrate all the ways that you show up the way that you want. Have compassion for the ways you didn't, and learn how you might choose to do it differently in the future. Not as a shaming tool, but as a lesson. Normalize not getting everything right, and you'll have less fear around it. Things aren't going to go as I want them to, and I might as well suffer some discomfort. These are things that I tell myself, right? I normalize that I'm trying something new. This might take me longer. This might be harder than I want it to be. That doesn't mean we're unsafe. We're just uncomfortable. And those are two different things. We can do the uncomfortable things. In fact, we discussed how it's required for a meaningful life. Confidence doesn't happen by accident. It's a skill that we hone. I've added a bonus alignment to this podcast so you can walk through fear through a voice we are all familiar with, the inner critic. You know, the inner critic, always shouting in our ear about how we aren't enough or we're too much and we never get it right. I've heard many people say they put up with the inner critic or let her come along, but don't allow her to speak. And I don't know about you, but my inner critic doesn't stop talking because I tell her to. Instead, I have a different way that I manage the inner critic. What if we befriended her and actually listened mindfully so that we could pull out the truth and leave the rest behind? It's the bonus this week, so I hope that you'll click and try the visualization and the questions that come with it to help you journal. It's one small part of my Confident, Connected, and Impactful coaching program that has helped women like you get the inner critic from taking over and keeping them from the life that they truly crave. I hope that you'll try the visualization for the inner critic and see if you can be more mindful about the inner critic and really see her as someone who's on your side, just in a very different way. Thank you. I hope you all have a great week. Hey, beautiful human, just one more quick thing before you go. Thank you so much for hanging on there. I'd love to hear what you want to learn about or what you're struggling with. If you're feeling stuck, maybe you have struggles in relationships, not sure where you should go next, struggling with purpose or meaning in your life, tell me all about it and I will reply and may even use it in a show, anonymously if you choose, of course. Please write to me by clicking on the contact button around here or emailing me at christina-smith.com. I'd also love to hear your feedback, positive or constructive. Be sure to rate and review and share this podcast. We're new and we can use all of the help that we can get. Thanks so much, and remember to be gentle with your humanness.